Today, we're breaking down 17 Dynasty trade targets that Danny and I personally have ranked above the expert consensus on flockfantasy.com. So the other experts, and of course, keep trade cut market value, which will be more reactive to some of your league mates. And we're going to break down kind of some guys that we feel like we're sending out some offers for. We're going and buying low on. We'll kind of make sure to reference whether it's kind of more of a rebuilding or a contending trade target for those of you guys in those specific situations. I know you've all been clamoring for Dynasty content. Unfortunately, we had to put it on the back burner for a couple of weeks, but we're back. We're going to have a Dynasty video every week going forward. Danny, let's get into the first guy here. And the first trade target we have is Chase Brown. Now, Chase Brown, coming into the year, we were very excited about him. We thought, okay, potentially mid-second round redraft price tag, this guy could be a league winner. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow goes down, but it doesn't change the fact that Chase Brown, we still believe in the player. We still believe in the workload and the talent that he's shown so far, even if he's been inefficient in the quarterback play and the offense is bad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, ultimately here, we have to understand that the offensive situation has deteriorated from what we had last year. Last year, when you had Chase Brown, he was an RB1 down the stretch because of the circumstances that we had with Cincinnati. I think people always kind of bake that in. Like, from a pure talent perspective, is Chase Brown Saquon Barkley? Is Chase Brown, Ashton Genty, Bijan Robinson? He's not that caliber of talent, but we said, hey, an average to above average talent in a very, very good situation will yield a ton of fantasy points. Now, unfortunately, with the Joe Burrow injury, that has resulted in 9.4 points per game and the RB31 on the year. That's causing his market value to completely plummet. Now, we have adjusted him down. He is now our 82 overall in our consensus rankings. He was a guy that we more so considered in that top 50 range. So we do have to bake in the fact that we have a lost year of his prime for a running back in terms of a production window. But with that being said, as soon as Joe Burrow is back, Chase Brown sounds like a guy that they want to build around moving forward. Again, we'll see what the contract looks like. Maybe he takes that Austin Eckler type of discount. We saw Austin Eckler, for example, with the Chargers, kind of get, a 75% market value type of deal. And I still think Chase Brown is in their long-term plans.
Yeah, the challenging thing with Chase Brown is this, because there's some risk to Chase Brown because you look at his age. He's not like for a third-year running back right now going into his fourth year next year when Joe Burrow is fully healthy. There is the risk that he goes the route of Isaiah Pacheco, where Isaiah Pacheco, coming into his third season, we were very excited about him, and then he gets injured and then doesn't have that same appeal, obviously, this season coming off of the injury. I think there's a possibility that if the Bengals were to reset, add pieces to the running back core, maybe they don't want to re-sign Chase Brown. And Chase Brown is a little bit older for a third-year running back. He's like 25 years old. So there's a little bit of risk there, but I think that's baked into the cost right now because on the market, we're kind of in line with it, relatively speaking. But my thought process of why Chase Brown's a really good buy is that the person who drafted Chase Brown, the person who had Chase Brown on their roster, might be one of those fraudulent contender types right now, where they're 1-3, they're 0-4, maybe they're 2-2 with a low amount of points for, and they're looking to shed pieces off of their roster. So for me, when you look at some of the trades that have taken place here, like getting Chase Brown for a random second-round pick, Chig in a second-round pick, this deal with Ladd McConkey getting Jalen Waddle and Chase Brown makes sense. If you're in a contending window, you'd be selling off a young receiver who isn't producing for a guy who just lost Tyreek Hill, who is probably going to produce going forward, and Chase Brown. So there's deals on the table for Chase Brown that maybe would make me squeamish, like sending away a 1 and a 2 or something. I wouldn't go that far. Even sending away a random first in general, I wouldn't go that far. But sending away other assets that would appeal to rebuilding teams or teams trying to tear it down is the route that I would like to take to go and get Chase Brown.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you can get him for a relative cost, I would say about an early to mid 2 is about what I'd be wanting to pay. If it gets to that first round range, I would likely go elsewhere because just simply the liquidity aspect of Chase Brown versus the first, you kind of have to lean the first right now. But with that being said, as soon as Chase Brown bounces back, he should at least be worth the first, I would say, next year. Let's just say he's re-signed, he's producing, he'd be 26 at that point, and maybe he is, we'll say tentatively a top 12 to 15 running back. Now, could he get back to that top 6 to 8 range he was at the tail end of last year? Maybe, but for now, we'll just say he gets back to top 12 to 15 running back status. I think at that point, he would probably be worth about a late one.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of like one of these assets that you're buying into for a small gain. He's not going to be like a superstar top 2 first round type of asset. I mean, he could. If Burrow and the Bengals offense bounce back, he has a monster year next year, gets a contract extension. It's possible that he would go back to being a top 10 dynasty running back or whatever. But it's just unfortunate. It was ripped away from us in the Joe Burrow injury, and I do think he was on his way to a monster season. And now, I mean, I think he's also, just from like a production standpoint, still going to improve even with Jake Browning, even with the Bengals offense playing as bad as it is. 9.1 fantasy points per game, or 9.4, sorry, fantasy points per game, and RB31. I expect him to be still about a top 25-ish play for the rest of the year, given his workload.
Like maybe if you're lucky, a back end RB2, probably about a high end RB3, that type of range. I would say 25 is about the nail on the head.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually traded for Chase Brown. I think this is another good way to trade for him, is doing a package deal where he's part of it and he's not like a major part of the deal. Like I traded away Tyler Warren, Tetairoa McMillan, a first and a third, to a rebuilding team that's 0-4, and it was actually Spicy Hot's team, ironically, that he gives me back Devon Achane. For me, that's about equivalent to Tetairoa McMillan within the deal. And then I also gave him a first, a third, and Tyler Warren. He gives me back Tucker Kraft, Chase Brown, and a second. So for me, it was kind of like, hey, I'm buying some competitive assets. I needed some running back production. I down tier at tight end. I swap a young, great wide receiver in Tetairoa McMillan for a young, great running back in Devon Achane, and Chase Brown and the second round pick kind of helped balanced out the deal for me there. So there's a number of different ways you could go about attacking a guy like Chase Brown. But to me, I think the reason he's a buy is because he's probably on a lot of fraudulent contenders right now.
Yeah, for sure. Chase Brown, I think, is one of the premier buy lows at the running back position right now. Let's go to one of our buy highs, a guy that we were on coming into the season, but based off these early signs, man, this guy's on a superstar level trajectory. It really reminds me of that Drake London type of arc we saw with Atlanta, but Tetairoa McMillan, very, very strong usage metrics we'll talk about in a second. Right now, only about 11.5 points per game, wide receiver 33, which again is fine, about what we expected coming into the year. But given the current metrics that he has, which I'm sure you'll point to in a second, that upside is legitimately even top 15 rest of the season. Like he is legitimately being treated like an alpha.
Yeah, well, and we talked about him as both a redraft target as well. So we could kind of keep it brief of why we think he's a great trade target from like a production standpoint, because we did talk about this yesterday. But he is our 24th overall player in startups right now, because you got a 22-year-old receiver who in the first month of the season, despite being a little bit raw, commanding a 25% target share, 41% of his team's air yards, 38% of the third and fourth down targets. Like he is the number one receiver of this team. And for those of you guys that are rebuilding, I do think he is an attainable guy. Like I just told you kind of what I traded away for Chase Brown in the last deal. Well, the flip side of that would be from Spicy Hot's perspective, buying in on a guy like Tetairoa McMillan, having that Drake London-like ascension and becoming, you know, a calendar year from now, 2 calendar years from now, a top 5 to 10 dynasty wide receiver, and feeling confident in him producing 15, 16, 17 points per game. And I think we could even see that by the end of this season. So if you're looking to tear things down, like you can see some of the deals on the screen right now, Derrick Henry and T. Higgins going and buying in on a guy like Tetairoa McMillan, a long-term stable asset, 22-year-old wide receiver. I think appropriate market value for him right about now is, if you are a contending team, 2 projected mid to late firsts for a guy like Tetairoa McMillan is also a pretty decent deal there. You see this other deal, David Montgomery and Chris Godwin for Tetairoa McMillan, Khalil Shakir. I would say that's probably more of a casual league. People don't really understand the long-term appeal of a guy like Tet McMillan. Same with like the Henderson and a first for McMillan in a second. I think that's probably about an even deal. Maybe if you're really high on Henderson, that's probably the Henderson side, but that's kind of the going rate for McMillan right now. But a top 12-ish dynasty wide receiver, a guy you can build around if you're rebuilding.
Yeah, for sure. Especially too, like if you're a contending team, you can ship a couple first. You have that prolonged contending window. Maybe you have like, you know, a CeeDee Lamb right now. Once he comes back, you're able to pair CeeDee Lamb plus Tetairoa McMillan. Like to me, like that's just a sustained contender. Like Tetairoa McMillan fits so many builds, which is why he's so valued. Especially if, I mean, not many people were in midseason startups right now, but legitimately the flexibility you would have being able to pair him with like a Josh Allen is so big.
Yeah, exactly. He's perfect for every kind of build. Chase Brown, more of like a 1-year punt type of buy, I would say, whereas Tetairoa McMillan, more of a, if you want to tear it down, sell off Derrick Henry types to go get him, it makes sense for that. If you want to go buy him right now because his production might correct itself, makes sense for that. And using, you know, like we said, potential late first round capital plus to go get him would make some sense. And I honestly think in most leagues, you wouldn't even have to pay 2 firsts for this guy. I think given that he plays for the Panthers and people are not excited about the offense and stuff, you could probably get Tetairoa McMillan for a first, a second, and a bench piece in most leagues.
Yeah, you may as well could. Again, he's definitely gone up in terms of our value for him. His market value, though, I mean, it's pretty much where it was at coming into the year. Like, that's kind of confusing me. Like, he's done what he's done. Maybe that's just because people see 11.5 and aren't really impressed, when in actuality, it's probably the most impressive thing on this team.
Yeah, no, exactly. And people may just be hesitant to buy in on the Bryce Young experience as well. And maybe like there's whispers in Carolina that Dave Canales is maybe getting a little bit old for some people as well. So yeah, there's things that are not great about Tetairoa McMillan, which is why Drake London, I think, is just the best comparison for him, because we knew even in the first couple of years of Drake London's career, when the QB situation wasn't great, offensive situation wasn't great coaching wise, that eventually it was going to correct itself. And we're seeing obviously the fruits of that at 24, 25 years old, Drake London producing last week, wide receiver one type numbers, and he was a wide receiver one in fantasy last year. So staying in the NFC South, let's go to Bucky Irving, who right now is like the premier time to buy Bucky Irving in a dynasty format, is because in redraft, people are worried about Bucky Irving because Bucky Irving is in a walking boot, the injury, all that kind of stuff. You might get, let's say, 90 cents on the dollar to what his actual market value is, especially if that team is a contending team, for example. Like, you guys can see this trade right here, Derrick Henry for Bill and Bucky Irving. Like, Derrick Henry has absolutely no business going for Bucky Irving plus on the open market, but this team might be panicked right now on Bucky Irving's injury.
Yeah, I don't think that's a reasonable deal that I can see happening. However, specifically with the other ones, I mean, Wando and a first for Bucky. Yeah, go get Bucky for that, especially assuming that's going to be a mid to late one, because otherwise, why are you buying a running back? But even if that was like an early to mid one in this 2026 class, that'd probably be about equivalent value. Bucky Irving plus Jordan Addison for Derrick Henry plus AJ Brown. Little bit more on the fair side here. I would say AJ Brown versus Bucky. I would prefer Bucky Irving. Derrick Henry versus Jordan Addison, probably a wash, but I would take the Bucky side there. Bucky Irving for Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, J.K. Dobbins, Khalil Shakir. Like, sure, get all that junk. Start 10 full PPR. Go give me Bucky Irving all day. Bucky Irving plus Jordan Mason for RJ Harvey and Travis Etienne. Again, I understand it. Etienne producing right now. RJ Harvey obviously getting a ton of buzz. I would say the general market on RJ Harvey right now would be about an early to mid second. So if we're equating it, an ETN plus early to mid second, I would pay that straight up for Bucky every single time. A free Jordan Mason is gravy.
Yeah, and like from a football perspective, the reason you'd be buying in on Bucky Irving is the fact that he's literally 18 points per game in PPR right now, RB19 or RB9 overall. And Tristan Wirfs just came back last week, and we saw what happened. The offense and the running game really came alive. The offensive line is going to have more reinforcements coming back. Luke Gadecki is going to be back in a couple of weeks. The offense just got Chris Godwin back. Eventually, they're going to get Mike Evans back. Let's say by week 7 or week 8, Bucky Irving is in an offense where the right tackle, Luke Gadecki, is back. Left tackle, Tristan Wirfs, is back. Graham Barton has played more than just his first game of the season at center. Ben Bredesen's playing left guard. And you have that 3 stack of wide receivers out there drawing attention away from Bucky Irving. Mike Evans is healthy. Chris Godwin is healthy. And Emeka Egbuka is still doing his thing. So I think the best is yet to come from a redraft perspective with Bucky Irving, and also from a dynasty perspective. The guy's literally 23 years old, and the team just absolutely is in love with him and wants him to be the starting running back for like all of eternity by the sounds of it. So even though Rachaad White and Sean Tucker might have a little bit of short-term appeal here potentially, I don't think that this injury is majorly significant. It's probably going to be a 1 to 2 week absence at most.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe you can move up to a guy like Bucky Irving, maybe using, for example, if you have like a Kyron Williams, maybe like a Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, guys like that. I think that'd make a ton of sense. If you have a young running back and maybe want to transition, like, again, I would still have Bucky Irving slightly over a guy like Trevion Henderson. I would still have Bucky Irving slightly over a guy like Quinshon Judkins. But I think like a 1-for-1, if somebody would be willing to sell Bucky, that'd probably be the range that they're looking at. But yeah, Bucky Irving, number 8 overall for me. I did end up moving James Cook above him simply because of how good Cook has looked. But I think very minimum, he has to be a top 8 running back in Dynasty.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's pivot into Zay Flowers, who got off to a raging hot start for the start of the year. And he's still averaging 15.2 PPR points per game, the wide receiver 16, but he was legitimately like looking like a league winner after the first 2 weeks of the season. And right now we have him at 41 overall, the expert average about 50, and then keep trade cut about 55. I think what the experts and like the experts, quote unquote, and like we're part of that. So our ranking is also kind of weighing him down there. What people I think about Zay Flowers is that he's inconsistent, that he has big weeks, but he's not going to be consistent week to week. And I think we've seen the targets be a lot more consistent this year than they've been in years past. And I personally feel like he's made a major stride as a player. And Lamar Jackson's going to be out for a short period of time, similar to Bucky Irving. This is a very good time to buy Zay Flowers, because if they're on a competitive roster, you could maybe convince them, hey, Lamar's banged up right now. I can send you something that can get you by in the meantime. And just look at some of these deals, man. Kyron Williams in a 2 for Zay Flowers in a 3, Zay for a 2 straight up, Zay Flowers for a 2 and a 3 straight up. Like, I don't think people realize that, in my opinion, this is an asset that should be damn near 2 firsts of value. Like, given that he plays for a team that's absolutely loaded on offense, scores points at will, and he's taking a major step as a player here. Maybe you don't want to pay 2 1s for him. I definitely wouldn't.
That was overkill.
I definitely wouldn't at this point in time, but he's worth a 1 and a 2 at very minimum. And this is a dude that is going right now for pennies on the dollar. These are real trades.
Yeah, I think a first is reasonable. Again, I don't think I would pay much more than that. But at the same time, when you're talking about the context of a second or a second and a third or fucking Kyron Williams, like, yeah, give me Zay Flowers in that instance. I will say, though, again, the target volume has been great. 8+ targets in 3 or 4 games. I just think games like week 3 are going to happen for Zay Flowers until he can prove otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise to anybody probably that I'm the highest on the site of anybody on Zay Flowers, because I've just always notoriously been higher on the player. But for me, it's like, I think that the whole narrative, then you're literally peddling it right now, that like those games like week 3 are going to happen. Yeah, they are going to happen. Fucking Jamar Chase too. Like, it's a wide receiver thing. Running backs are generally pretty consistent. Running wide receivers, not as much. I think that by the end of the season, we're going to look up and this guy scored 17 fantasy points a game.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that is he literally had flashes last year, and it was a 12.6 point per game a year. Now, I'm agreeing that he's grown as a player, but 17 points per game, like, he's going to have to prove a whole lot more to be able to get that, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe. I think when you do CGLs for next year or whatever, we're going to look at the games he played with Lamar Jackson. He's going to be like 17 point per game producer.
Yeah, I mean, he's at, 15 right now?
Yeah. And Lamar missed the whole fourth quarter pretty much against Kansas City, and he ended up getting just some garbage time looks or whatever. So
Zay got like the majority of his production after Lamar was out.
I know. Either way, Zay just a really, really strong trade target in my opinion. Just a guy that you can, maybe you eat a week or 2 where he's not as productive. I don't think Lamar's gonna be out for an extended period of time. I think he could legitimately still win people leagues, just like he looked like he was going to through the first 2 weeks of the season. Especially if you're getting him for really a singular first of value is very, very easy buy for me there. The next guy that we got to talk about is someone with a whole lot of aura, as the kids are calling it, as Team Unk here would not know what aura means. But I do understand what it means when people are talking about Jaxson Dart, because Jaxson Dart is currently our 56th overall player right now. And for me, he's actually the QB1 of the 2025 class. I did move him ahead of Cam Ward. The experts have him at 71. Keep trade cut about in line with where we have him at 58. 19.8 points per game as a starter. Obviously, he only played that 1 game. But we did see the rushing tendencies. We did see that he was able to move the offense. And like Abdul Carter on defense is like, yeah, we're 1-0 now or whatever. Like, totally not even acknowledging that Russell Wilson existed as a human being. So I think that Jaxson Dart, just as crazy and as gutalytics as it sounds, might just have it to some degree as a franchise quarterback, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I know why you say that, because like just the way he kind of carries himself is very Baker Mayfield-y, like is probably the best way to put it. Yeah. Like, is he just like a faster Baker Mayfield in terms of like his aesthetic?
Yeah, I think he is on pace to be this year's Bo Nix. I think that's why I'm buying into him. I think that the magic carpet ride that we're about to go on with Jaxson Dart as a fantasy quarterback is one that produces like legitimate 18, 19 point per game type production while he's a starting quarterback. Because even now, without Malik Neighbors, and Malik was out for most of that game, they beat the Los Angeles Chargers, man. Like, that's a good ass team that you just beat. And again, I'm not going to go overreacting too much to one game. I love Jaxson Dart, the prospect, too. So this is me taking what I knew and thought about him as a prospect, what he could do with his arm, his legs, all that kind of stuff, and seeing it in an NFL game against truly one of the best defenses in the league, and producing a high-level fantasy performance without his best receiver for most of the game. And from like a Ward versus Dart long-term perspective, I believe more in Brian Daboll, assuming he sticks around as the coach. I believe more in Malik Neighbors once he's back healthy, as far as like the weapons core around the quarterback. Unlike Cam Ward's got Calvin Ridley on a huge mega deal, and he's doing absolutely nothing. So I just want to buy into Jaxson Dart right now. I think that he's a top 15 to 18 dynasty quarterback that I'm willing to send away mid first round capital in 2026, plus even maybe a bench piece or something to get him.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. He's definitely a big riser for me. I still would take Ward because I do think better days are going to be coming. But I think day by day, that's getting a closer conversation. And who knows by week 8, week 9, where that ends up leaning. That's kind of where I'm at right now. However, with that being said, look at some of these deals, man. Like you're talking about, you can get Jaxson Dart for, probably a late first and a second. I think that's reasonable. Keon Coleman, sure, you want to send him plus a late first. I think that's fine. Geno Smith, I mean, he's looked like ass so far. If you want to do that, that's reasonable. Again, it's buying high, but it's also buying high with the acknowledgement that high right now is just relative to week 5. Like, what's high going to look like if he did take that Bo Nix ascension?
That's exactly why I'm buying on him right now. I think you perfectly encapsulated why I'm buying high on him. It's that, it's high relative to where you drafted Jaxson Dart. Probably people got him 201, 202 or whatever in their rookie drafts, but it's not high if he's worth 2 first-round picks by the end of his rookie season, because I'm a week away from putting this guy over Kyler Murray in my quarterback rankings.
I already have
one more good week out of this dude. I will be above Kyler Murray, above Jared Goff, who's 31 years old. Like,
that ship is sailed for me, man. Maybe you have Cam Ward a lot lower than I do, which is probably the case. But like, I have Kyler Murray, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence. I have all those guys ranked lower.
Yeah, I have Lawrence and Ward and those guys. But yeah, I'm with Jackson. I'm you might even have him higher than me among quarterbacks, but I have him higher among overall, I guess. Maybe actually you're right in line. You have him 55, I have him 57. So we're like right in line with where we view Jaxson Dart. Yeah, like I said, I think this is a quarterback that is going to be kind of a magic carpet ride for the rest of the season and into the future. He's got Malik Neighbors, man. Malik Neighbors is an absolute stud, assuming he's back healthy, midway through next year.
Yeah, no, 100%. And on top of that, I mean, I just trust Brian Daboll to at least raise the floor of this offense. Jaxson Dart, obviously a mobile quarterback. Wan'Dale Robinson, we've seen him used around the formation, especially in the slot. Like, I feel like Daboll in this offense is going to do enough to at least be able to support Jaxson Dart, because I mean, we saw when Daniel Jones was healthy, when Daniel Jones didn't have, a lot of the mental shit that's happened in New York in the last couple of years. I mean, the guy led them to a playoff berth. Do I think the Giants are going to make the playoffs this year? No, but like Jaxson Dart, I kind of see a little bit of that 2022 Daniel Jones factor to him.
Yeah. Like, what happens if in the draft next year, they add a great number 2 wide receiver to go along with Malik Neighbors? You have Scadaboo and Tracy, a nice young running back duo. You have Wan'Dale as your third receiver now. Neighbors, once he comes back, is obviously going to be your alpha. Theo Johnson, we have some faith in as well to maybe develop as a tight end who's super athletic. I think that this situation, let's say Jackson is able to save Brian Daboll's job, because honestly, I just think that Brian Daboll didn't have a quarterback. I don't think he's a bad coach whatsoever. I think that it's possible that we're looking at this situation a calendar year from now and going, like, how we view Indianapolis right now. We're like, Shane Steichen, really good coach. Like, he just didn't have a quarterback. He had Anthony Richardson starting games.
Yeah, no, for sure. But moving off of Jaxson Dart, I think we pretty much summed it up. We were perfectly willing to buy high, fringe top 50 level asset. If you have a startup draft right now, I think at worst he should be a 5th round pick. So we go on to the next player, Chris Olave, wide receiver of the New Orleans Saints. He is our 67 combined, expert average about 75. KTC is valued about the 86th overall player. And summary of a season, 12.4 points per game, wide receiver 25, 29% target. He is having exactly the type of Olave season that everybody would have said about Olave coming in. Like, he's getting a lot of targets, but maybe the touchdown equity isn't there because these Saints kind of suck.
Yeah, so the big reason why I think maybe keep trade cut is still low on Chris Olave is like the concussion stuff and like the injury history and whatnot. My thought process on Olave is this. I think you're buying a guy who literally only Puka Nacua has out-targeted this year. This entire season, Chris Olave is second to Puka Nacua in overall targets among wide receivers. It is crazy to me that Chris Olave is entering a contract year, and I would be shocked if he re-signed with New Orleans, to be honest with you. I think that he's going to go to a different team, get traded in the offseason, something like that. And worst case scenario, he does re-sign with New Orleans and New Orleans is drafting highly and gets a new quarterback. Like, I just think that we're buying him right now at his absolute worst situation. Like, people were worried going into the season that Rashid Shaheed was as good as he was or something like that. That's just like a non-issue and non-concern right now.
Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, like Juwan Johnson's getting targets, sure, but like, I don't know. I look at Chris Olave and I view him the same way I always did, which is like he's a back-end wide receiver 2 in Dynasty. That big territory, that cluster of great young number 2 wide receivers around the NFL, the Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, George Pickens, Jameson Williams, Jordan Addison types. He's right in that cluster with those guys. And you could argue from like a production standpoint that he's actually better than some of them right now because he's getting the targets, he's getting the PPR points.
Yeah, no, he definitely could be. I mean, like you mentioned the targets. I mean, just being behind Puka Nacua, I mean, doesn't take a lot of people to realize just how good Puka Nacua has been. It's been weird though, I will say. 43 targets for 185 receiving yards. Like this is New Orleans Wan'Dale Robinson pretty much right now. We
Yeah.
do want to see the deep involvement happen. Honestly, it's a young quarterback. We'll kind of see if that happens going through. Like he's getting the targets right now. We like to see this type of volume, but who knows? Maybe we mix in a play action shot or two. I mean, Kellen Moore, surely you can do better than 4.3 yards per target.
Yeah, and part of it's just me buying into Olave the player. Like we have so much overwhelming evidence that this guy's a good receiver, that he can command targets at a high level. And as soon as the situation changes, I have no idea what it's going to be. I have no idea if Olave stays in New Orleans. I have no idea if he gets traded. I have no idea if it's a quarterback upgrade in New Orleans. I have no idea. All I know is that this situation is about as bad as it can possibly be right now. And he's number 2 in the NFL in targets and producing like a back end wide receiver 2 in fantasy. So if he can continue playing well and maybe some of those deep shots connect, some touchdowns connect, whatever, maybe gets traded at the deadline, I have no idea how it's going to play out. All I know is that I'm buying into it and I want more shares of him.
Yeah, and I'm buying into it, especially when it costs for Alvin Kamara, a running back that isn't really even producing right now, and he's, 30 years old?
Yeah, and I like a singular late projected first in the future, I think is a totally fine price to pay. Like this is a team, this next one is like the Neighbors and Olave for Harrison and Pittman. That's probably a rebuilding team looking to get younger.
Yeah, real quick, I wouldn't want to pay a first for Olave. I just want to make that clear right now. Like, I would want to use him even if it's a 2 plus a 3. Like, I just wouldn't want to give up that first label for him right now, knowing kind of what the market is at on him. But Dak and Olave for Marvin Harrison Jr. Like to me, Dak and Marv are close, and you're getting a free Olave here. Like Dak's a top 12 quarterback in fantasy, and he's going to be there for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, if I knew my first was late, I would be comfortable paying a first for him. But that's a value difference, I guess, between the two of us. But overall, I just think he's a really good guy to go and inquire about because he has the upside to really gain a lot of value, in my opinion, depending on what happens with his situation and also continuing to produce from a real life perspective. Let's talk about Luther Burden, who is very clearly like a rebuilding buy only.
Yes.
Like he is not somebody that if you're a contending team, you'd be interested in really. He's our 85th overall player. His expert average is at 99 and his keep trade cut rank is at 100. So, or 101. So, you look at Luther Burden's season so far, he's really only had that one big play where he had 19.8 PPR points in week 3. He catches the long touchdown, but he is 23% targets per route run when he's been on the field, but he's only averaging a 31% route rate and a 27% route rate the last 2 games. So DJ Moore's still a barrier for him to overcome. Rome Odunze is obviously breaking out, and that maybe changes somewhat of the outlook for Luther Burden coming into the season because I think there was a small percentage chance that he could eventually become one of the better receivers on this team. And I think given how Odunze is playing, you got to say at the very least he's capped as the number 2 receiver on this team at this point. But Burden, if you're trying to tear things down, is the perfect guy to go after. Like you have David Montgomery, Jalen Warren, J.K. Dobbins, guys that are like producing that you need to get off your roster, that you need to get that production off your team. Burden is the exact guy to go after.
Khalil Shakir, realistically, Khalil Shakir, if I told you tomorrow, his ceiling is what? Maybe the wide receiver 27, wide receiver 28 end of year points per game. And I think I'm being kind by giving that, by the way.
Yeah, I'd say like a 13 point per game season is about best case scenario what you could expect out of Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, so if that's wide receiver 27, wide receiver 28, even if he did that, what's he worth on the open market? Maybe a mid 2, maybe
I'd say an early 2 to an absolute diehard Khalil Shakir stan is probably the best you'd get for him.
I mean, if Luther Burden was a wide receiver 27 next year, he'd be worth way more than that.
Yeah. Given the caliber of prospect Burden was, and if he's the wide receiver 27 next year, I mean, you assume that Odunze was obviously a monster. Caleb obviously has another step maybe in the right direction. I mean, Caleb's only like in his 20th career game or whatever right now. Like
22 years old, right?
Yeah, he's still got so much more to show us, and I've been really impressed because someone who was a little bit skeptical about what Caleb Williams would look like this year. I've been really impressed with what I've seen from him. He's been a little bit up and down so far this year, but the flashes, remember last year in his rookie season, there was that Jaguars game in London where we're like, there's Caleb Williams. There's the USC Caleb Williams. It's happening about 3 times as often, 2 to 3 times as often this year. And then what happens by year 3, year 4? Is Caleb Williams doing that every game? Or does he look like one of the best, truly one of the best 5 to 10 quarterbacks in football? I think that's definitely within the range of outcomes for this quarterback. And Luther Burden himself is a young player, does need a lot of development. And we saw, I think a really, really underrated part about Landing Spot is a coaching staff's ability to develop players. And Ben Johnson and this offensive coaching staff had to develop Jameson Williams into one of the best receivers, deep threats in the league.
Yep.
So their ability to develop a guy like that who needed a lot of work coming out of Alabama gives me a lot more confidence about Luther Burden from what I've seen from him so far, combined with the prospect that he was and combined with the situation he's in.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, everything you've seen from a per touch basis, from a per route basis has been there. We just need the routes to go up. And, like you said, more of a raw wide receiver, falls a little bit in the NFL draft, maybe some off field stuff that was kind of inhibiting him a little bit, but the talent was on display. I mean, we saw the guy, a sophomore in the SEC, legitimately be the best wide receiver in the SEC.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit semi-concerned that he might be a knucklehead and not put the work in, but I was worried about that with Jameson Williams. And Jameson Williams, when you're in the right situation and the coaching staff's, good at motivating you and that kind of thing, Ben Johnson's obviously dealt with players like that before. I think it's makes me buy into that more. So that's something that I feel positive about Burden. Again, very easy selling point on Burden is that he's not going to produce for you. He's not going to put any points in your lineup really early on in his rookie season. But he is going to be a great long-term asset. So when you're tearing it down, you're trying to shed production off your team. You go, I just drafted Jaylen Warren because he went low in the startup. I don't want him on my roster right now. I need to get him off my team. You could see a deal like this. Jaylen Warren gets sold off for Luther Burden, a third-round pick. Perfect rebuilding type of trade.
But moving on to the next player, we have Kyle Pitts here, our 109th ranked player by our consensus expert average at about 135. Keep trade cut at 124. And it's funny because the minute that Kyle Pitts actually does show something, people are just like, oh, well, like he's burned me in the past, so like he can't actually be showing anything. Kyle Pitts is quietly the tight end 8 in fantasy, and he's averaging over 11.5 points per game. And given how Michael Penix looked this past week, the health of the wide receiver core, the nature of how the Falcons offense is kind of operating right now, like I think Pitts is here to stay. He's playing a lot better.
Yeah, I think the thing that's keeping Kyle Pitts low in price tag right now, and the thing that would maybe still get you a nice discount on Kyle Pitts if you were to go to that opposing manager, is the fact that he's Kyle Pitts, that everybody's super upset with him. And he's been, at one point in our channel's history, the gold standard of tight end, and now the dog shit standard or whatever people want to call him. Like Kyle Pitts right now, quietly producing at 24 years old. I know how crazy it sounds that he's 24 years old, but he is literally still 24 unless he turned 25 early in the season. But 19% target share, like you said, 11.6 PPR points per game. He's running 90% of the routes, and him and Penix have a nice connection building. And if Penix continues to take steps forward and continues to produce and all that kind of stuff, then Kyle Pitts is going to be here to stay. And I'm okay buying into this player. Like I know I'm trying to wipe my memory clean to some degree. And remember that this is still like a 6'6", 250-pound athletic freak who's commanding huge route participation and a nice amount of targets right now.
The big thing is he actually looks athletic again, because after the knee injuries, he did not look athletic. The guy has 205 receiving yards on 24 targets this year. Like, you can't just write this off as fake. No, like this guy's actually playing very well.
Yeah, and he is he's turning 25 this week. So he's very young still. Let's just put it that way. Like, to give you guys an idea, this is going to sound crazy. Kyle Pitts is 3.5 months older than RJ Harvey. Isn't that crazy?
He's younger than me.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is super young, man. Like tight ends, their prime is typically like age 25 to like 29. So the fact that he came into the league at like 21 years old and then showed us these signs of like, oh my God, what a monster he is as a rookie and all this kind of stuff, and then suffers a knee injury, like you said, loses a little bit of juice, and then it sounds like he's kind of getting that back. Him having he's kind of almost having exactly the David Njoku career arc right now. And David Njoku, the last couple of years before this year, was producing like top 12 numbers and even had a top 5 season in points per game last year. So I feel really confident that Kyle Pitts is absolutely worth like an early to mid second round pick on the open market right now.
Early to mid second might be tough because people don't buy tight ends, but I would say at least
one half tight end premiums, he's absolutely worth that price tag.
Correct. I'm just saying people are just hesitant to buy tight ends in general because they might say like, I'll go for Ferguson. Like, it's funny that I actually see Ferguson in here. I'll go for, other tight ends, but I think mid to late 2, I would still even be willing to pay. And I honestly think on most markets that should be able to get it done.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially if you guys are in like heavy tight end premium formats, because then tight ends are properly valued in those types of situations. Like Pitts is a way to maybe potentially get a really great option for you at a price tag that's stomachable because it's Kyle Pitts and nobody wants to buy Kyle Pitts. Yeah, like that's just ridiculous. I mean, let's say like given how I value Kyle Pitts, because I actually have him quite a bit higher even than you do. I'm like 20, 30 spots higher on Kyle Pitts in my overall rankings than you are. I would be willing to give up like, I'm trying to think of a wide receiver in this territory. Like I'd be willing to give up like Josh Downs or Michael Pittman or somebody like that for Kyle Pitts on the open market. Like, and I don't think you would not have to pay somebody like that in most leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Downs part is probably a little overstated right now because the guy's playing 50% of the snaps. But I mean, Michael Pittman, I think I would hold Pittman, but at the same time, like given the relative cost, like Khalil Shakir, fucking give me a break. So you can get, Kyle Pitts plus for Javonte Williams. I think that's perfectly fair right now. Javonte Williams, probably a guy that's going to be a hammer this year. But what's going to be the long term? He's only on a 1-year deal right now in Dallas, $3 million. And I'm sure he keeps playing the way he has been. He's going to make a whole lot more on the open market. And I doubt Gary's going to hand it over to him.
I don't know, dude. Jerry likes to pay running back, so it wouldn't shock me if you guys re-signed him. But either way, like, what's Javonte Williams worth on the open market right now to a contender? An early second?
Yeah, I would say so. About it too. I would say him versus Pitts probably fair.
Yeah, and I would say Romeo Doubs worth maybe a late 2, something like that, given how he's producing. Like, and you're getting a third of insulation on this trade as well. Like, this is a perfect example of how I would buy into Kyle Pitts for sure, because he's Kyle Pitts. People don't like buying into him.
Like, the only trade here on this list, I would take the other side is Ferguson, simply because he's the tight end 1 in fantasy right now.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's definitely fair. And speaking of tight ends, we can talk about Dalton Kincaid as well, because him and Pitts are just like 2 peas in a pod as far as like people hate buying into these guys. But again, quietly, Dalton Kincaid's a tight end 6 points per game right now. Now, I know it's come off the back of like touchdowns and big plays, and the fact that his route participation is still like not nearly at the level of Kyle Pitts right now. I think Kincaid's like 65-70% of the routes at absolute best on his good games, whereas Pitts is like consistently 80-90% of the routes for the Falcons. Kincaid is, again, only 25 years old, starting to take a step forward. He's only in his 3rd NFL season, and we're looking at a guy who is really quietly having a nice breakout year and producing as a tight end that you can start as like a starter in your lineup every single week. And if you can get him on the open market, like, I mean, you're never going to get Kincaid plus a first for Justin Fields or whatever. I can't imagine that's the type of deal that you can get, but you can get him as like a throw-in. Like Addison to Olave to me is the same tier. So if someone views that as like a down tier, because Olave's got the concussion issues, Addison's a little bit younger, and you can get Kincaid from Ott and upgrade, like that's how I would trade for Kincaid, similar to what I said with Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, Kincaid plus a third for Allen and a Warren. You're trying to get rid of production. I think that makes sense. Like you said, Kincaid plus a first for Fields probably not going to happen in most competitive leagues. And then this deal, Dalton Kincaid plus Dak for Penix, Trey Harrison. What is that, a second or a third? A second? Like, you can make the argument Dak's worth this on his own.
Yeah, no, exactly. So there's a lot of opportunities to go buy these 2 tight ends specifically. And again, the exciting thing, because I know they're not exciting, especially if you've had them in years past. The exciting thing about Kincaid and Pitts is that if you squint, you go, yeah, these are still young players that are continuing to get better. I know it's like we want instant gratification in fantasy football because we have the Brock Bowers of the world, the Sam Laportas of the world, the guys that produced immediately when they got out of the college game into the NFL. But generally, Kincaid and Pitts are following the more traditional tight end career path.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's what's been happening. We usually see year 3, year 4, year 5. I mean, for example, how many years did we talk about Jonnu Smith before he actually put it together?
Yeah, well, and David Njoku I brought up for Pitts too. Like David Njoku we talked about for 3-4 years, and he didn't do anything until I think his 5th season in the NFL. It was his first time he was producing in fantasy. So sometimes you just got to be patient with these tight ends. And I think with Kincaid and Pitts, they're producing, they're young, they have 1st-round pedigree, and they're on, Kincaid's on a great offense. Pitts is hyper athletic.
Speaking of being patient, this is a guy, I'm just going to allude to it right now. I'm as high as anybody there possibly will be on this guy. But holy fuck, can we play him on offense? Can we play him more than 53% of the snaps? I understand if you drafted Travis Hunter at the 102, you probably have a bullseye on my head in your living room and you're probably shooting it in the dark. I get it. You probably hate me. You probably say, hey, listen, I could have Omari Hampton. I could have Tetairoa. I get it. But don't throw in the white towel, because this has not been a talent issue for Travis Hunter. This has been a usage issue. And I will tell you for free, when he gets yanked on defense and only plays 9 snaps in week 4, I think the Jaguars realize that something's got to change.
Yeah. I will say this about this about Travis Hunter. Obviously, we were very high on the player. If we redrafted today, he would not be our 102. He would be our 105, 106, maybe. I would say. I personally would take Omari Hampton, Tetairoa McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, Quinshon Judkins for sure, and maybe Travion Henderson as well. And
I think
maybe
it's reasonable.
like you could argue the quarterbacks as well. Like you could argue Dart, you could argue Cam Ward. That's kind of about the territory that Hunter would be. If we redrafted at this second, what is he worth on the market right now? He was valued inside our top 12s before the season. He's probably more wide receiver 18 to 20-ish at this point in time. But we're still being patient. We're not going to give up throwing the white towel, like you said. I think this was always a risk that he was going to have some usage related issues at the beginning of the season. I think it's going to play itself out. But like you said, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's great. I would like to see him look a little bit better before the ball gets in his hands, because I'm not going to say that he's been excellent as a route runner.
I would like to see him get trusted to run real routes. Like, that's my problem right now. Like, Liam Cohn, this visionary, you're coming over from Tampa. Look at the pass attack. You got the fucking second overall pick, generational talent in your fucking lap, and you're running him Wan'Dale Robinson's route tree.
Yeah, no, he's got to figure out the usage for sure. But again, if somebody right now didn't draft Travis Hunter, because somehow in my dynasty leagues, I did not get a single share of this guy. The one share I had of him was the Devi league where I drafted him in Devi, and then I traded him to you. So I actually have no shares of Travis Hunter right now, surprisingly. If I'm buying him right now, I think a singular first round pick is probably about his market value. Like, maybe you would pay a 1 and a 2 for him. I think that's probably like, he's right in that territory of Zay Flowers and Xavier Worthy, who we're going to talk about in a second. They're about worth the same amount on the open market, I would say. So if you're going to buy into Travis Hunter right now, and I'm going to now in some of these leagues where I don't have him, that's about the price tag I would pay. Like, you could see like Kenneth Walker in a 2 for Travis Hunter in a 2, Jalen Coker and Travis Hunter for a 26 first, I think makes sense. Travis, I mean, you're not going to get him for Keenan Allen and Isaac Tesla, but there's going to be reactive leagues where people are selling Travis Hunter for nothing and for very little. Like, there's probably going to be leagues out there. Comment down below if you guys have traded for Travis Hunter in the past couple of weeks. What did you pay for him? Did you pay like a first and a second type of value, or did you get him for like a 2 and a 3? Because there's going to be leagues where he's going for that.
Yeah, I can't think of a single thing more frustrating than this last month of Travis Hunter. I'm going to be completely honest. It's not even just he's gotten the opportunity and he's looked awful. Like, it's not like a QJ situation from his rookie year. It's not even like a Marvin Harrison Jr. situation from his rookie year where you're just watching the guy play and you're like, oh, like, no, he's not good right now. Like, that's a bad. He's playing 53% of the snaps and he's playing like Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, it's
like a Rome situation, actually.
It's infuriating.
Rome's rookie year is probably the best comparable for us, because we had an issue with how he was being used, and Shane Waldron's also a common denominator in both situations. Like, I think that by, let's say by week 10, we'll have to revisit this conversation, because by week 10, we should have more information on what Travis has done. But for now, it wouldn't shock me if by week 10, we're like, holy shit, I wish I was buying in every single league. But we also could be like, man, this is still going on. This is becoming a problem.
100%. And that's why my biggest pet peeve when we're live streaming or when we do a video and people are like, when's Danny going to wave the white flag? When's Danny going to throw in the towel? Like, this is just take clock at this point. It's like, guys, it's 4 weeks into his rookie season. Ask me in week 10 and week 12, and maybe I have a different answer. Let's just process what's going on right now, because we all can agree that he's not being used like he should be. Let's just see how he looks when he is.
Yeah, again, we have to wave what's close to white. We have to wave a light gray flag for now. But we're not waving the white flag on Travis Hunter, because we do expect him to bounce back to some degree. But yes, if we redrafted rookie drafts today, he would not be the 102. He would be like the 105 to 108, somewhere in that territory, depending on super flex. And you could definitely argue, I didn't even mention, like, I would definitely take Tyler Warren over Travis Hunter at this point in time in Dynasty as well. Like, yeah, he'd probably go a lot further down the board than where we told you guys to draft him in rookie drafts, and we'll definitely own that for now. But let's reevaluate in a couple more weeks. Let's see what happens with Travis Hunter the rest of the season before we get too crazy out here.
It's 4 weeks into all these guys' rookie seasons. Like, Jayden Daniels doesn't look like Jayden Daniels till what, week 4, week 5?
I think that was week 4, that game against Cincinnati on Monday night.
Cincinnati? Yeah. Okay. Regardless, though, Xavier Worthy. We mentioned Travis Hunter. We mentioned Zay Flowers. We got kind of slender wide receivers in this video. He's our 50th overall player, expert average of 61. Keep trade cut is about 64. And he just got 17.1 points, 24% target share, first game back. Patrick Mahomes looks very damn good. So to me, when I look at Xavier Worthy, he's my wide receiver 18 in Dynasty, and there's a very real possibility he can keep rising. You guys know my thoughts on Rashid Rice. I still think Rashid Rice is the number 1 on this team. But I think it's going to come to the point where with how bad Travis Kelce looks, we see a lot of target concentration between the top 2 wide receivers. I want to be in on both of them.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the gap between Rashee Rice and my rankings versus your rankings is a lot smaller because Rashee Rice is 3 years older than Xavier Worthy, which is part of it for me. And also, I just
13
think
and
that
18.
yeah, I have them. I think let me double check where they are in my rankings respectively because I do have them really, really close. Yeah, I have them at 19 and 18. So they're like Rice is one spot ahead, but I have them very, very close because I do think that these two guys are going to really ping pong weeks and kind of just coexist with each other. But yeah, Worthy is a guy that I'm buying into right now, just simply because he hasn't been on the field and he's a young receiver who I want to build around if I'm rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean, I have Rice at 13. I have Worthy at 18. So I'm higher actually on both of the Chiefs wide receivers, which, I mean, if you're higher on Kelsey, maybe that makes a little bit of sense. But regardless, though, Worthy, young player, speed, big play upside, attached to the best quarterback on earth. The fact that you can get, we love Luther Burden, but if that's all it costs to get Xavier Worthy, I would totally be willing to pay you up there. If you can get Xavier Worthy plus a first for Devontae Adams and AJ Brown, like two older wide receivers with less market upside for Xavier Worthy, I would take Xavier Worthy over both those guys. So the fact that you are able to also net a first by giving both up, you get age off of your team, you get younger inherently, you bank in a first round pick. This is a very good process move to be able to make. Xavier Worthy for a first straight up, especially if you're, mid to late type of first, you're a contending team. Early to mid is probably about the valuation I'd put on Xavier Worthy. So if you can pay him mid to late and you can get his production for the back stretch, I think that's a perfect deal to be able to make. We have about a full season of sample with Xavier Worthy when you count the playoff run. He missed a couple games last year, obviously missed a couple games this year. And with Lab McConkey, you have about 20 or 21 games of sample in his career. I think it's reasonable. Like Lab McConkey going into the offseason was ranked higher, but based off the fact that we've seen Keenan Allen and QJ kind of have some relevance, Xavier Worthy does what he does in his first game. Like it's at least a conversation between them two.
They're back to back in my rankings. I do have McConkey one spot higher though. So that would be where I'm at with those two guys. But yeah, like Xavier Worthy, if you're a rebuilding team, like get some competitive assets on your roster and go buy Xavier Worthy because he's 22 years old, tethered to Patrick Mahomes. And whenever he's been healthy in the last 7 healthy games that he's played, he's looked like the best receiver on the team. Now, will that change when Rashee Rice is back? I'm not exactly sure. I'm a little bit more pessimistic on the talent of Rashee Rice coming off of the injury and that kind of thing. But a lot of people definitely assume that Xavier Worthy is, maybe not as valuable as Rashee Rice. And I don't think that's the case. I think that in Dynasty, because he's 3 years younger, I think they're about the same in value. Even if redraft wise, Rashee Rice outproduces him by a couple points per game.
There is a gap for me. Like I don't think they're the same, 13 versus 18. But I mean, regardless though, I do like Xavier Worthy. I just think you're too low on Rashee.
Yeah, which has been my MO for a while. Let's talk about a couple more of these guys here. We have George Pickens, who it's pretty straightforward conversation. We're kind of buying high on him right now. And it's not necessarily, and Danny can just stop doing tricks on it in the back of this conversation here. I'm not necessarily buying on George Pickens right now because CeeDee Lamb is out. Like that's not why I'm buying in on him. And you could even wait until CeeDee Lamb comes back to buy if you don't want to pay the premium that you're going to have to pay on George Pickens. I just genuinely think the guy's having a good enough season to the point that he's getting a large contract either with the Cowboys or elsewhere. And I actually think it will be with Dallas because I think he fits the team. I think he wants to probably stay there and that kind of thing. So for me, I think you got to treat George Pickens pretty much the way that you treat any top tier number 2 wide receiver. Like in my wide receiver rankings, I have George Pickens right next to the likes of T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, those type of guys. So before, I didn't view George Pickens quite in that territory, but I do now because he's a little bit younger than those guys, and it looks like he's going to have some kind of contract insulation in that situation. Like I have T. Higgins, George Pickens, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, Jordan Addison, back to back, and they're all kind of in the same tier for me.
Where do you have Pickens?
Pickens is second of that group. So he's one spot ahead of Smith and Olave, but he is behind T still.
Overall?
He is 56th overall. You have him
a wide receiver.
Higher. At wide receiver, he is wide receiver 23 for me.
You cannot be taking T. Higgins over him at this point. I'm sorry. You have to consider that they're the same age, and George Pickens exponentially projects better than him moving forward.
Just to give you an idea, Danny, other than you, I'm the highest expert on the site on him. So you're picking at you're picking at.
I'm just things here. You're the only person I can confront right now because I can't talk to Avery Mason or the others on the site right now. All I can say, George Pickens is currently the wide receiver 6 in fantasy. He's gonna be a top 5 wide receiver when CeeDee Lamb's out for the next couple of weeks, and even when CeeDee Lamb's back, why can't he have the T. Higgins season from last season? And he's going to get the extension with the Cowboys. With T. Higgins, you're dealing with the fact that he's probably a wide receiver 4 for the rest of the way.
I think he's a buy low from a redraft perspective, but I'll give you, yeah, he's probably, I probably should have Pickens ahead of him. And you know what? I'm even going to, just to satisfy you even more, I'll put him ahead of Travis Hunter as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have him above Zay Flowers and AJ Brown, so I don't even think it's high enough.
Yeah. But 21 is where I have George Pickens. And now 20? he moves up to, what is that, 50 in my rankings, which is exactly where you have him pretty much. So
there we go. We're lockstep. But all jokes aside, I mean, it's pretty simple. Dak is playing out of his mind. They're going to throw the ball 40 times a game. And honest to God, like, I know this is more of an eyeball take. Obviously, I can pull metrics of just how good Pickens has played. Like, Pickens looks amazing right now. And, like, that's the thing that really like, down in the game, 1 minute left, you go and score the game-winning touchdown against the Packers. The Packers are top 3 defense in EPA this year. Micah Parsons on the edge. Nixon's been playing well in their secondary, and Pickens just laid his nuts on the table.
Yeah, and Pickens is 24 years old, man. He's still really young. And here's the thing. Avery and I are actually at the same spot. We both have him at 50. You have him at 47. The guy's bringing down the rear here. Zach has him at 80 and Mason has him at 78. So I don't know what the hell these guys are doing. Maybe they haven't updated their overalls since Pickens
That's what I'm assuming.
Has produced. But either way, he's got to be on the rise for a lot of people on the open market. This one will be very quick because Daniel Jones was obviously, I think in our trade targets by position all offseason, he was the number 1 quarterback buy that I had the entire offseason. That every single video I talked about Daniel Jones.
Spoiler, by the way, to everybody about to listen to this will be a little bit of self-fellatio. We will have to do it, especially you.
Yes. When we're going to take L's on Hunter, you got to take W's on Daniel Jones. I'm still buying into him because I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to give him Sam Darnold's contract after the end of this season, legitimately.
Spicy.
Or Baker Mayfield's contract even potentially. Like, this is a dude that is playing very well. He should have beaten the Rams on the road. If Adonai Mitchell wasn't a moron for 2 reasons, the blocking penalty on Jonathan Taylor and the flip out of the back of the end zone, Daniel Jones would have went into Los Angeles and beaten the Los Angeles Rams on their home turf and been a 4-0 football team.
He had it all set up. He had the walk-in touchdown, and this guy really goes to extend the ball and fumbles it.
Yeah, insane, man. Insane that Daniel Jones is playing as well as he is. And it was there. It was there. It's the reason he's my highest drafted player on Underdog. It's the reason I traded definitely the most quarterback trades I made this offseason were for Daniel Jones. And I'm still buying in because if you can get him for anything less than a first-round pick right now, you should be buying him because I really do think that he is going to get a major extension with the Indianapolis Colts and be a fixture of like the Jared Goff. Like, I think he's the next Jared Goff. Like, Jared Goff has been a very productive fantasy quarterback for a number of years. When he went to Detroit, people were skeptical. Oh, maybe washed out of Los Angeles or whatever. I think we're talking about a guy who is mobile, who could score rushing touchdowns, who has a good supporting cast around him, a good coaching staff around him, a good offensive line around him, a good run game. Everything is setting up for Daniel Jones and the Colts to be a long-term fit together. And he fits the culture. He's Indiana Jones, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's definitely been good. And when you combine that with the fact that, I mean, George Kittle for him straight up, I think that's reasonable, especially if you need a young quarterback. George Kittle, older tight end, currently deal with an injury. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, Devontae Adams, similar thing. Devontae Adams, older wide receiver. He's probably going to give you, back-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 production. But if Adams just simply doesn't give you, low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 numbers, let's say week 13, week 14, you're going to be regretting passing on Daniel Jones if he keeps playing the way he has been. Daniel Jones for a second. Like you said, you can get him for less than the first, you go and do it. Daniel Jones for Michael Penix in a third. Maybe you're worried about Michael Penix right now. Michael Penix has kind of, been up and down. Yeah, I'd probably take Michael Penix straight up, but at the same time, I can understand somebody who's worried on Penix making the transition.
Yeah, and the last 4 guys that we have are all injured currently. So we can rattle through them. They're all buys for the same reason. It's that if you're a 1-year punt team, if you're a rebuilding team, you're kind of hoping for value accumulation. So Brandon Aiyuk, Jayden Reed, Jalen Coker, and Trey Benson. All of these guys have long-term appeal, have value on the open market, but right now, they're not very valuable at the moment because in the regular season, during the fantasy football season, people are very one-track minded. They want production. They want pieces that are going to produce. And that's why you can make trades like the ones that you can see here for Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk is one of the highest paid receivers in the league. Once he's back healthy, let's say this season is relatively a wash because he's not 100% healthy, but going into next season, J.K. Dobbins for Brandon Aiyuk in a third is going to age like milk in Texas sun, man. Like, I really do think we're getting a guy that, where does Brandon Aiyuk go in redraft next year, Danny?
It's impossible to say. I'm going to keep it a straight up honest with you because what's going on with George Kittle at that point? What's going on with Christian McCaffrey at that point? What's going on with Brandon Ayuk himself at that
Let's say
point?
that
Ricky
George
Pearsall,
Kittle and
Jawan
Christian
Jennings.
McCaffrey are still there, and Brandon Ayuk, by the end of the season, starts to look like himself. He doesn't have a monster fantasy production or anything like that. He just starts to look like himself. We're optimistic generally.
How do Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings look?
I mean, Jennings is a free agent after this year, is he not?
Well, that's what I mean, he signed he signed some type of.
Wasn't it just a 1-year deal or something that he signed?
It was some type of bonus. It might have been, regardless, but who knows? Like maybe we'll know if he gets re-signed at that point, or maybe Aiyuk gets moved. Like there's way too little information to make, like I would say, declarations on Aiyuk right now. All I know is that whenever there's a lot of pessimism, whenever there's a lot of unclear or lack of clarity, for that matter, that's the best way to put it. There's going to be opportunity, and it really depends on what you're getting in Aiyuk for. Like for Ridley and Aiyuk for a second, that's a reasonable shot to take. I personally would take Sutton over Aiyuk in a second at this point.
Really?
I would.
I would not. I'm also the one who's bringing up this ranking because I have Aiyuk a lot higher than you.
Way higher than me.
More optimistic on the player getting back to full health. Like I know he's not going to be really great this year, but I think if you're a 1-year punt type of operation, if you're trying to retool your team and get some productive pieces off your team, Aiyuk makes sense for those type of builds specifically.
Sure. Counterpoint, Cortland Sutton is currently a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy, and we are praying Brandon Aiyuk can get back to there.
Well, that's why you get a 2 on top of it.
Well, that's why it's a start 11 league for me. When I'm looking at Cortland Sutton, like he's the type of guy that can actually make a difference right now. At least.
Yeah, no, he can. Again, Aiyuk, this is more of a
makes sense.
This is more of a me take. I am more so than you. I'm buying into him on rebuilds and 1-year punts because I think a calendar year from now, you're going to be able to sell him for a whole lot more than a mid-second round pick, which is what his market value is.
He would be 28 at the time, coming off of a compound ACL. Like we have.
But it'll be 2 years removed from the compound ACL, not 1 year.
Yeah, but I mean, he's had complications with it, and we'll see how he looks coming off of it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just willing to buy into the player getting back to who he was before because he was truly one of the best receivers in the league. So that's where I'm at with Aiyuk. Jayden Reed's the same kind of thing. I mean, Jayden Reed in his first game before he got injured, he was playing through the foot injury at the time. 13.5 PPR points, shut down indefinitely. We have no idea if we're going to see him again for the rest of the season. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Doesn't sound like we will. Maybe he comes back for a playoff run for the Packers or something like that. Shoulder and foot surgery. So people are going to be really pessimistic on him. You can probably get him for a pretty good value. Jalen Coker, also another good example of a player that we haven't seen him yet. We were excited about him coming into the year. We think he's a great sleeper. Perfect throw in. Like this Travis Hunter trade is the perfect way to get Jalen Coker on your team. You're buying Travis Hunter in this trade. You're not buying Jalen Coker, but you just tack on Jalen Coker to make the trade a little bit more appealing with a little bit more upside for you.
I also think this Coker Scadaboo for Darnold in the third trade is very interesting. I think at minimum, both Coker and Scadaboo are worth higher than the third. And you can make the case if Scadaboo keeps being, a top 24, maybe when Tracy comes back, it's more so a top 30 running back. You're still talking about a 22-year-old going forward. Jalen Coker, I mean, we were very high on him this offseason. As soon as Adam Thielen got traded, we're like, oh my God, like this is going to be the slot wide receiver for the Panthers. The Panthers, as soon as Adam Thielen got traded, we're like, oh my God, Coker's going to be our slot wide receiver. And then he suffers a hamstring strain. So this is a total unknown. There's the very real possibility Coker can be one of the single biggest value accrual players as soon as people see him on the field. Who's to say he is not the clear number 2 on this team and averaging 8 targets per game next to Tetairoa McMillan?
Yeah, no, exactly. I really like Coker just as a good production piece, but also for rebuilding teams. I think we could be talking about a top 40 dynasty wide receiver at the end of this year. Something like that, where you can maybe get an early second round pick for him on the open market at the end of the season. And then Trey Benson, obviously, this is very recent news. He got put on IR. He's probably going to be out for upwards of 6 to 8 weeks, like 4 at the minimum, because he got put on IR. But it sounds like the injury he suffered could keep him out for significant time potentially. But here's my thing with Trey Benson. Going into next year, let's say Trey Benson gets an opportunity to start for the Cardinals at some point this year. Hopefully he does. Hopefully he's not out for the rest of the year. Yeah. If he gets an opportunity to start for the Cardinals at some point, James Conner is probably going to retire legitimately. He's probably done. Like, unfortunately for James Conner, an Achilles tear at 31 years old with the amount of touches that he has under his belt, he's probably cooked. Trey Benson going into next year is ranked where among dynasty running back rankings? Probably a top 15 to 18 dynasty running back.
Well, let me ask you, where was he ranked for you prior to the meniscal tear?
16.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, I do agree he has to go down because, I mean, the torn meniscus is no joke. And part of the reason why we had him in that, 15 to 18 type of range was because the immediate production he would give. To me, when I look at this meniscal tear, he's probably going to be out about I would say at least 6 weeks is probably an
Yeah.
optimistic timeline for it, possibly closer to 8. So because of that factored in, I moved him down to 21. But you don't have to pay RB21 price tags. You have to pay Tony Pollard price tags right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like he is not Adam Schefter reported yesterday that he is expected to return this season, but he will miss a minimum of 4 games due to injury. And most of the fantasy docs that I can see here
6 to 8 is what I saw.
Yeah, are basically saying somewhere similar to 6 to 8 weeks as well. Yeah. So again, it sucks if you dropped all your fab from a redraft perspective on Trey Benson, that he's, not usable until potentially the fantasy playoffs or close to it. But by the end of the calendar season, if he has like a 5-game stretch at the end of the year where he's commanding a 60+% snap share and producing as like a mid RB2 or better, we're talking about a guy who will, at 23 years old, by the way, Trey Benson, will be a top 15 dynasty running back heading into next year. So again, rebuilding teams, shed off that David Montgomery piece, that Tony Pollard piece, that J.K. Dobbins guy, like those type of players for Trey Benson make sense if you're in a 1-year punt or a rebuild situation.
Yeah, 100%. As soon as Trey Benson is just able to go back on the field, show his 3-down capabilities, show the type of caliber of player that we both think he is, I think he's going to be one of the faster risers. Obviously, the meniscus kind of standing in the way right now. Very unfortunate. The first start we see him on the field without James Conner, that ends up happening. But if you have Trey Benson, don't panic. Don't just sell him for scraps, because we do believe in the talent long term.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that is the end of this video. We're going to basically we broke down 17 players that we're buying in Dynasty right now. Let us know Dynasty wise, for those of you guys that are obviously very in tune with Dynasty that are watching this video, what do you want to see most? We have plans to give you updates on the 2026 class in terms of how those are progressing. Do you guys want strategy type videos? Do you want to know if you're a rebuilder, what you should be doing right now? If you're a contender, what you should be doing right now? We can definitely talk about that kind of stuff as well. Just let us know down below in the comments. And of course, while you're down there, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will not ignore the Dynasty crowd anymore. Unfortunately, beginning of the redraft season, you do really have to focus on that kind of content. And there is some Dynasty implications to a lot of what we were talking about. But yeah, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. If you're new to the site, we have great tools for Dynasty players. Our Dynasty rankings are up to date. Our Dynasty trade value chart was part of the reason why we did this video. We got some better updates and better values on those players. So if you're making Dynasty trades, you can use that, plus the trade calculator to go out and make a lot of Dynasty trades. If you're a rebuilder, you should be making trades. If you're a contender, you should be making trades. And being active is the best way to get ahead of your league mates in Dynasty, as both of us can attest to, of making trades. I literally made a Dynasty trade this morning. I think you made one today too. As well. Yeah. We're psychos. Like, you have to be a psycho to play Dynasty at a high level, in our opinion. So definitely check that out if you guys are interested. And of course, you get a free team review if you sign up annually for a Mother Flocker package over on flockfantasy.com. So check that out. That'll be linked down below in the description. But with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.